Welcome to Central News, I'm Amy Forrest. In today's news, construction on the Pilot Bay Boardwalk could start before the end of the month after councillors gave it the go-ahead. It took councillors 2 hours to decide to proceed with the boardwalk after hearing from the Mount Progressive Association's compromise offer and following a lengthy debate filled with accusations and points of order. The boardwalk's alignment has been changed to stick close to the road along the Salisbury Avenue and to preserve the larger grassed areas. Council also approved paying for a new storage shed for the Waka Ama Club next to where the waka are kept on the foreshore. Staff will continue to discuss beach replenishment with the port company. Provisional boating restrictions over the summer period in Lake Rotoma have now come to an end. Access to an area of water within 75 metres of the shore was closed to boats between the hours of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m, 7 days a week from October through to the end of March. The area is a popular spot for diver training and over 1,000 divers use the area a year as it has the perfect depths and conditions. Bay of Plenty Regional Council Harbour Master Lakes Pererika Makiha says the trial of the exclusion zone had worked well and there had been no reported incidents over the period. The New Zealand Transport Agency and KiwiRail are welcoming the release this week of the Upper North Island Freight Story, a new publication which outlines key issues and opportunities to help move freight more efficiently through the region. The Freight Story was developed over the past 12 months by 7 North Island councils comprising the Upper North Island Strategic Alliance. Working together with the NZTA, KiwiRail, Auckland Transport, industry groups, ports and freight operators to identify critical issues and to create a shared evidence base that will enable better future decision making. New Zealand Transport Agency Chief Executive Jeff Dangerfield says the NZTA, KiwiRail and Auckland Transport worked closely with UNISA through the process to identify ways of reducing the costs of doing business in New Zealand through an Upper North Island lens. Now for our region's weather. Hamilton showers are developing this Friday with a high of 22 and a low of 12. And Tauranga, cloudy periods increasing with a high of 22 and a low of 15. Just ahead, flu vaccination. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. A deadly flu virus from the United States is reportedly ready to strike New Zealand this winter. Hillary spoke with Kim Hunter, Immunisation Coordinator from the Waikato DHB, to find out how you can prevent the spread of this virus. Kim tells us more.
So tell me about the killer flu that's on its way to New Zealand.
Well, what we're hearing from the Northern Hemisphere is that they've had a particularly nasty season. Seems to be affecting the very young and the elderly, and they're having up to 10 times the rates of hospitalisations and deaths than what they normally would see in an influenza season. So the viruses track from the north to the south in hemispheres, so we are anticipating that we could be in for something similar, and absolutely recommending that people get their vaccine early on.
Is it really a killer flu?
Well, it's looking like they're having a nasty time. It's 10 times the rates of what they would normally see, and the severity is particularly nasty. So they've had between 60 and 100 deaths, which normally they would have 30 or 40. So it's quite a lot higher, and we can only suggest that might be coming here. We have to wait and see, but prevention's always going to be better than waiting to see.
How does this flu differ from other strains of flu?
Well, all influenza viruses are similar in that they can cause varying types of influenza symptoms, varying severity, but they can shift and drift, and so sometimes they'll affect different age bands more than others. And we saw that with the swine flu H1N1 strain. This one that we're thinking is going to affect us is the H3N2, and it's looking particularly like it affects the very young and the elderly, and particularly nasty complications. So they're seeing lots of pneumonias, hospitalisations, deaths, those sorts of things. So those with other complications are particularly hard hit.
How do we know when we have the flu and not just the common cold?
It's a really good question, and I always say to people, if you're not sure, then you haven't got it. If you've had influenza, you'll know. If you're not sure, then you haven't had it. It's very severe. I speak from experience. 24 hours later, I was in hospital with pneumonia on oxygen, so for a week. So influenza's nasty. You will be bedridden and aching, exhausted, and may quickly have chest problems. So not something to be taken lightly, and it's definitely not as mild as a cold.
So how can we protect ourselves from the flu?
Get vaccinated really early on in the season. The vaccine's been available now since the end of February, so get that on board really early. The vaccine takes up to 2 weeks to start having an effect, to give you immunity. So before we get lots of circulating virus in the community, it's good to have that already on board. The other normal hygiene things, obviously, good hand washing when you're sneezing or coughing, cover your nose and face. But they're saying that an influenza virus can travel as far as 6 feet. So if you're standing in a lift and someone sneezes, then that's not pretty.
When is the best time to get immunised?
Definitely as early as you can in the season, from when the vaccines are available. The influenza itself will start peaking around the middle of the year, but that can vary from season to season as well. We might see that earlier this year. So we're absolutely recommending that people get that vaccine as early as they can, and certainly, for those with other complications as well. There
is a little bit of a myth out there. Can you actually get the flu from the vaccine?
Absolutely not. It's absolutely impossible. But it's something that we often hear, that people had the vaccine and then thought they got influenza. You might get some kind of mild flu-like symptoms, achy for a day or two, generally not much that a Panadol wouldn't fix usually. But influenza, as I said, is very, very severe, and you absolutely cannot catch it from the vaccine. It's not possible.
Who can receive this vaccine for free?
There's a list of eligible criteria. You can find that on the Ministry website, but generally most complications or conditions that people have, whether it's cardiac or respiratory related. So anybody over 65 is eligible for free. The Ministry's just announced that young children are now all for free. So there's quite a list of eligibility criteria that people will come under. If you don't qualify for a free one, then at general practice it's approximately about $30.
Is there a cut-off date for getting the vaccine?
The influenza season for vaccination runs usually till the 31st of July. Some years when we've had particularly bad seasons, they will extend that. We went out to the end of August, September last year. So it just depends on how the season shapes up, and whether there's a necessity to continue on if the severity indicates that it's necessary.
And if we do get the flu, what is the best advice for looking after ourselves?
Stay home, don't spread it to anyone else. And it's difficult because you're actually infectious for at least a day before you get any symptoms, so you may have already spread that around. But certainly you'll be wanting to stay home and rest, fluids, and seek medical help if you require it.
Can you tell me a few statistics about New Zealanders affected by the flu each year?
On average, we have about 50,000 GP consultations every year, which of course is a huge workload, not only for the doctors and nurses, but in terms of people being sick in the community. So that's just those that go to the doctors. Over 1,000 hospitalisations every year, and generally around about 400 influenza-related deaths each year. So, it's difficult to track because people will get influenza and then have complications like pneumonias and other things which may, lead to death, but that's often put down as being caused by something else.
And what are some other tips of stopping those spreading of those germs?
Covering your nose and face when you're sneezing and coughing, washing your hands, absolutely being vaccinated is number one, of course, because if you're immune, you're not going to pass it on to someone else, and just looking out for people coughing in lifts, I guess.
What message do you have for those who are unsure about getting the vaccine?
Oh, look, talk to your practice nurse or your GP. There's a lot of information. There's a really good website for influenza.org.nz, which is the National Influenza Strategy Group website. Has all the information there and the resources for public and for health professionals. But generally, ask questions and talk to your nurse about it. I know a lot of people are unsure, but most people can have the vaccine quite safely.
To help prevent the spread of this virus and to protect your loved ones, make sure you call your nearest GP for the vaccine. Up next, Hilary catches up with Lindsay Tish. Welcome back. Russia is an emerging economic force and New Zealand is building a close relationship with them. Recently, Waikato Member of Parliament Lindsay Tish led a parliamentary delegation to the Asia-Pacific Parliamentary Forum in Vladivostok.
The APPF, as it's commonly known, is an organisation that was set up 21 years ago by the former Prime Minister of Japan, Premier Nakasone. And the concept is to have parliamentarians between nations within the Asia-Pacific region. If you sort of look at the map, you've got the Asian side and you've got the Americas down to South America. And it's an exchange of parliamentarians annually as opposed to a government-to-government exchange. So APPF is about parliamentarians meeting. APEC is the equivalent, but that's government-to-government.
Ah, yes, I think APPF is a lot easier to say. Yeah. So what was the purpose of New Zealand's representation?
Well, New Zealand makes a representation at this conference every year. Last year it was in Tokyo, where we celebrated 20 years of this organisation. Next year it's going to be in Mexico. So it gets shared around the Asia-Pacific rim, as it were, and the idea is that we exchange ideas, and it's an opportunity for New Zealand. I led the delegation of parliamentarians to share ideas with folk in other parliaments, but also to promote New Zealand, and part of that is the trade agenda, which is of a special interest to me. So I was there specifically in my role to talk about trade, or some of the others talked about earthquake, civil defence and things like that, but my role was about trade.
Because you gave a speech entitled Promoting Economic Partnership and Free Trade. How was that received?
Oh, very well received. We are trying to do a negotiations with Russia for a free trade agreement. And what a free trade agreement does is allows access of our products onto their markets without being penalised by way of tariffs. And tariff is just a tax that's put on for us to be able to export. And what we're looking for is to be able to have a free trade agreement along with other Asian countries. We have one with China. We've had one there since 2008. We're trying to do one with South Korea at the moment. India's another one, Indonesia, Japan, where we have some expertise, mainly in agricultural products. We want to be able to get those products onto the market without being penalised by way of a tariff. So part of what I'm looking for, and part of what my speech was about, was looking at trade liberalisation, being able to break down the barriers of protectionism within countries, and to be able to have free access of not only products but also of services as well. So part of my visit and part of my delegation's role here was to promote New Zealand in this international forum.
What can Russia give us back in exchange?
Well, Russia's got a lot of expertise in areas of minerals. We have an opportunity there also to use technology from the Russian side. They want from us things that we produce well, and that's why agriculture is so important. Our climate is more conducive. It was minus 20 degrees when I was in Vladivostok, so it was pretty cold. Having come from the beach at Mount Maunganui to go to Vladivostok, it was a change. So we have the opportunity to export markets, export products that they want. In return, we can bring products back and services back and expertise back. So these things are bilateral trade arrangements. It's not a one-way street. We buy, they buy, and that's what it's about.
Because you specifically had talks with your Russian counterpart on trade.
Yes.
What progress is being made for the free trade
Well, they're
agreement?
very receptive to what we have to offer, and that's significant because free trade agreements take a long time, and when we're getting at a parliamentary level and talking about it and realise what we can actually do, then they become more receptive because they're talking on a one-to-one basis. And they have a lot of interest in New Zealand culture. They have a rugby team, for example. The Russians have a rugby team. They were in the Rugby World Cup. So they actually know a lot about New Zealand as well. So it's not as if, while we're geographically isolated, we're very close in those terms. So my operation was really about putting in front of the Russians the opportunities that exist for them so that they can factor those into negotiations at a government level in terms of trade negotiations. So we were well received, very receptive, and I was very pleased with the outcome of the visit.
So you reckon a free trade agreement is looking likely with them?
In time. These things don't happen overnight. I said we've been doing this for 4 years, but progress is being made, and that's the main thing. It's about front-footing it for New Zealand, keeping us to the forefront, and that's what it's about. That's what these conferences are about.
Because you previously had negotiations with the Japan trade. Were you able to continue with these as well over there?
Yes, well, when I was in Seoul last year, in Tokyo last year, I had negotiations on free trade with them. Japan's a very closed country, closed community, so the best at this stage we can do there is a bilateral. But we're looking to try and get them involved in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. There are 11 countries involved, and that's a trade deal of 11 countries at the moment. It hopes to be concluded at the end of the year. I was pushing for them to be part of the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. They were hesitant about that, but in the last couple of weeks they've actually been very receptive. So I think maybe that the negotiations and talks that I had may have sort of allayed some of their fears about a TPP, which is a huge benefit to New Zealand if we can achieve that. It's about a $2.8 billion trade deal that we could actually make work, and that's New Zealand would benefit immensely from this. So ongoing discussions with the Japanese and also the Russians and Koreans. It's part of it. Yeah.
Up next, the lowdown on cloth nappies. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. Now, if you are expecting or know someone who is, you will know there are a million decisions to make. But one nappy lady is helping you make that decision easier by holding cloth nappy workshops around the country to help you get the facts. Hilary found out more.
What benefits to the environment do these nappies bring?
Basically, cloth nappies reduce waste to landfill. That's what they do. So you've got one cloth nappy will replace around 365 disposables a year from going to landfill. So if you're, as a parent, if you just use like one cloth nappy a day for the entire time your baby's in nappies, you're around about 1,000 nappies you can prevent from going to landfill. The other cool thing is that like if every parent in New Zealand actually just used one cloth nappy a day, you would be 1 million a week that wouldn't go to landfill, 1 million disposable nappies a week. So it's a really relevant way of reducing waste to landfill.
Now, it's not just about the environment. Tell me what parents could potentially be saving if they use cloth nappies.
Well, that's what is, I think, the most exciting thing about cloth nappies is you've got that environmental and then the cost savings being around $4,000 to $5,000 per baby. So a lot of the workshops that I run, you've got parents who are intending to have 3 kids. And so one of the questions we ask is, what would you do with $15,000 given the choice? Would you take $15,000 and put it in the landfill? Or would you take $15,000 and buy a house? You know, like it's a deposit on a house, a family holiday, a new car, any number of things. But it's a lot of money when you think out over the time that the baby's in nappies.
You have a free workshop coming up over the year. Can you tell me about this?
I do. In Hamilton, we've got, I think, another 2 workshops coming up. We've got one today that we're doing tonight, which is fully booked, and that's just, we can't do anything about that. But the next one's in June, and I think the last one's in November this year. So it's all on my website. You can book them online. It's $20 to come to the workshop, and the parents get a 2-pack of nappies worth around $50 to $60 to keep at the workshop.
So where and when will they be held in the Waikato on the Bay of Plenty?
Okay, so it's just double check the dates on the website because we've got so many events this week. I can't even remember like what's happening tomorrow, let alone the rest of this year. But I know there's one before the Parent and Child Show this year. I think that's June, and then later this year, so that's Hamilton. And in Tauranga, we've got another one coming up fairly shortly, and then one in September, October time as well. So they're spread throughout the year so that pregnant women can either get to them when they're pregnant or get to them just after they've had the baby.
Who can attend these workshops?
Any mum or dad, lots of dads come. It's really quite interesting how many dads turn up to the workshops because they're just as interested nowadays as what the mums are, and it is a significant investment, so they want to help out and sort of make the decision together. So we get a lot of couples coming to the workshop.
How can those expecting find out more?
The website's the best place. So it's my website is www.thenappylady.co.nz, and also for this week and everything that's happening till the end of sort of mid next week, there's clothnappyweek.co.nz, but everything's happening on our Facebook page. So there's lots of giveaways, freebies. We're hiding treasure, which brings in the Cape side of it. So we're travelling from Whangarei down to Queenstown over 10 days, driving with loads of prizes. We have to have pick-up points, and I got given a cape to wear just for a random reason that we're going sort of flying from town to town, and so we're hiding nappies and treasure and taking photos of them and putting them on Facebook. And we leave them there, so you go and find the treasure and you get to keep it, which is quite cool. We ended up with like 50 grand's worth of stuff, and a Bosch washing machine, and a year's supply of Earthwise, and all these huge prizes.
Tell me a bit about your role as the nappy lady.
It's become something that's more like I work with 20 odd councils at the moment, and it's become more of an educational and support network where it's not just me now. I have a lot of parents who help me to help parents use cloth nappies. I do all the education and the upfront stuff and helping mums and dads just to make the decision by passing on knowledge and experience. And then I've got mums who help in individual areas to actually assist the parents with the nappy usage as well. So it's sort of growing a little bit viral. And the parents getting so excited about cloth nappies nowadays that they want to tell everybody else. So it's like, yay, let's tell everybody, and sort of spread the excitement but get them helping each other too. So it's gone places I never sort of expected, including like the Cape.
That is the news for today. Now, we really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook and let us know your views. If you have any news, including your own video or photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. Hilary will be back tomorrow with more guests from in and around the region. I'm Amy Forrest. Have a wonderful evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.